Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to my channel Internal Audit Lab by Noshin. Today I will discuss domain 3 of CI part 1, that is proficiency and do professional care. And under this domain 3 I will cover two important topics, that is required knowledge, skill and competencies for the internal audit activity which will be tested in the exam in basic aspect, and required knowledge, skill and competencies for the internal auditor that will be tested in the exam in proficiency aspect. So let's begin the video. So basically, the proficiency standard is basically described in Attribute Standard 1210, where it is said that internal auditor must possess knowledge, skills, and other competencies needed to perform their individual responsibilities. Here, knowledge means the body of information, for example, knowledge on fraud indicators. Skill means the competencies needed to perform the internal audit activity, for example, language or communication skills, IT skills, data analytics skills, etc. And competency means when these cumulative knowledge, skill, and capabilities lead toward exceptional performance, it is called competencies. For example, uh, let's talk about an auditor who has a good knowledge on fraud indicators and have a good interrogation skill. So using this knowledge and skill, he can assess whether someone is lying to him or not. So this is called actually competencies. Also, these knowledge, skill and competencies are required to have uh, on collective basis for internal audit department. That means not all auditors need to be expert in all areas. Rather, the cumulative knowledge, skill, and competencies are required for the internal audit department. For example, one auditor has a good report writing skill but may not be that much proficient in data analytics skill. On the other hand, another auditor is good at data analytics skill but not good at report writing skill. But it is not a problem for the internal audit department as long as these cumulative skills are present within the internal audit function. Now, proficiency is a collective term that refers to the knowledge, skill, and other competency required for internal auditor to effectively carry out their professional responsibilities. This proficiency basically encompasses the consideration of current activities, what are the trends and emerging issues in internal audit or business environment, which actually enable them to provide relevant advice and recommendations. Internal auditors are encouraged to demonstrate their proficiency by obtaining the appropriate professional certification and qualification like CIA, CRMA, or other certification issued by other professional bodies. Now comes to the point, engagement staffing options. So staffing basically means recruitment, selection, development and deployment of resources for the internal audit department, and there are several staffing options available for them. For example, in-house auditing, which is the dedicated internal audit team within an organization. Then another staffing option may be co-sourcing, which is the combination of internal staffing and external specialists. Then using the total outsourcing, that is in this case 100% outsourcing of the internal audit function. Then comes in subcontracting, that is if any specific individual is secured for performing any specific engagement or a part of an engagement. And last is secondment, if any person is hired from any part of the organization to carry out the audit activity for a specific period of time, that refers to secondment. So these are the available staffing options and CA can use. And when can we use the external service provider? For example, if we do the asset valuation or do the merger acquisition or fraud investigation, we can use external service provider. Apart from that, using external service provider for various audit engagement that require specialist knowledge such as tax questions, foreign language or IT, or when we need interpretation or any legal or tax matter, we can use external service providers. Now, chief audit executive have some responsibility when he or she employs the external service provider. Firstly, CA needs to assess whether external service provider has the necessary knowledge, skill, experience. So, CA needs to assess whether the external service provider has relevant professional certification. CA need to assess what extent the education and training received by this external service provider, or whether they have relevant experience in providing this sort of work, whether they are expert in this industry, so on. Secondly, CA needs to ensure that independence and objectivity are maintained throughout the engagement while appointing the external service provider. So in this case, CA needs to ascertain that whether the external service provider has any sort of financial interest within the organization, or external service provider has any sort of professional or personal affiliation with the senior management board or any other member in the organization. And lastly, whatever the work done by the external service provider, CA needs to obtain sufficient information about the scope of that work for ascertaining the adequacy of the scope of work for the purpose of internal audit activity. Now, some important points to remember. If certain knowledge, skill, or other competency is required to perform all or part of the assurance engagement is lacking, CA must seek external advice and assistance, but in any way, CA cannot decline any assurance engagement. CA must only accept consulting engagement if the internal audit activity possesses the required knowledge, skill, or other competencies to complete the engagement, otherwise can decline the engagement. So in case of assurance engagement, CA cannot decline the engagement. He or she needs to hire the external advice assistance if the any knowledge, skill, competencies is missing in the department. But in case of consulting engagement, if the knowledge, skill, competencies is absent within the department, CA can decline the engagement. Now, internal auditors need three things, that is proficiency, understanding, and appreciation. Where proficiency is required. So, proficiency means any high degree or strong degree of knowledge. That means internal auditor can apply that knowledge to situation likely to be encountered, and they can deal with them appropriately without extensive recourse to technical research assistance. Now, proficiency is very much required in case of applying the IPPF. Please remember, proficiency is required for IPPF and when apply the internal audit procedures and techniques in performing the engagement. If the auditors are extensively involved with the financial records and report, then proficiency in accounting principle is required. Now, where understanding is required. So, internal auditors, in case of understanding, means that they can at least recognize the significant deviation, and they are able to carry out the necessary research to arrive at a reasonable conclusion. So, understanding needed in case of management principle and the business policies and procedures. Where appreciation is required. So in case of appreciation, internal auditor need to recognize the existence of problem in particular area, or they need to at least recognize that potential problem lies within an area to determine the degree of further research or assistance required. So appreciation is basically required in some areas like accounting, economics, commercial law, taxation, finance, qualitative methods or quantitative methods, information technology, risk management, and fraud. Now, implementation standards is highlighting two important topics on fraud and information technology. So, what it is saying about fraud? It is saying that internal auditor must have sufficient knowledge to evaluate the risk of fraud, but not like that but not expected that internal auditor have the expertise of a person whose primary responsibility is detecting and investigating fraud. Similarly, in case of information technology, internal auditor must have sufficient knowledge on key IT risk and control, but they are not expected to have the expertise of an IT auditor whose primary responsibility is information technology auditing. Now comes to the point, competency framework. IIA has developed a competency framework in 2013 and another version was released in 2020. So CA aspirants should know both of these framework. So this is the framework for 2013, which started with the professional ethics, which is the baseline of it, which is the baseline of everything. So IIA has a code of ethics where the principles are integrity, objectivity, confidentiality, and competency. So internal auditors need to be abide by this guidance to promote and uphold ethical culture within the profession and the organization. Then comes to the internal audit management, where the internal auditors actually need to develop and manage every aspect of the internal audit function to achieve the defined objective. Then comes some point related to technical expertise. So technical expertise is related to IPPF, GRC, and business acumen. So IPPF is like a Bible for the internal auditor. They must know it, and they also should understand governance, risk, and control process, and they need to have a technical expertise on business acumen, that is what is the trends in the business, what is the industry practices, they should know about it. And regarding the personal skills, there are three personal skills they are required, that is communication, persuasion, and critical thinking. Then comes to internal audit delivery. They need to deliver the audit work by applying the strategies, tactics, and appropriate tools and techniques. And lastly, the improvement innovation. So they should embrace the changes and drive for improvement and innovation. And this is the competency framework 2020, where four areas are highlighted. So internal auditor need to have a professionalism. They should be performance oriented. They should have a leadership and communication skill, and they should be aware about the environmental factors. So this is all about it. Actually, this is actually the part one of the proficiency and due professional care, and another video will be releasing soon. So thanks for watching. Bye bye.